Welcome to the Archive Guys. I'm Matt Patterson,
I'm D.W. Ferranti.
And I'm Kelsey Milburn.
and we are here to entertain you for the low cost of free. So it's just us. But I think that that's okay because what is exciting from our time perspective
Is what
that
Kelsey has to say. You're right.
is not only what Kelsey has to say, but what the world will have to say, because our podcast is being published this week. The website is finally up. The email works. We even have a newsletter and a complete broad array of social media channels. All
And
of
I want to
which
be clear, Matt did all that work.
setting
Yeah.
it up, setting it
Yeah.
up. But there's not much content to it. And right now,
Eventually, when you get the newsletter and you're like, it sucks, that's my fault.
but if you get the first one, which I'm going to send anybody who sends an email to the@archiveguys.com, you can blame me because I wrote the first one. I sent it out as a test. It didn't, Kelsey, you didn't even get it. It was just me and Dan. And Dan's first comment was questioning the wisdom of my subject line, like it was going out to hundreds of thousands of people like our old newsletters did.
But,
Okay.
subject
Wait.
line, it's kind of my thing.
So there were old newsletters that went out to hundreds of thousands of people.
Yes. They just
And-
weren't there wasn't Archive
Well,
Guys.
hundreds,
Oh yeah, hundreds of thousands. It
but
went out.
not multiple hundreds.
No, Dan, no. I had the stats.
All
We
right,
had
tell me the
open-
stats because I don't know
Wait a
this.
second.
Dan,
We got like
I was always like 40,000, maybe 50,000.
No,
No?
Dan. No, I would show you these stats.
Did
you
I
just
did I
said-
talk to 500,000 people?
Yes.
Shit.
We
I mean,
had
shit.
we had sends that went out to 700 plus thousand people, but we would get like 400,000 opens.
If you're watching this, I need a job.
We're going to start with something new, and that new is this beautiful, and I did this last time, beautiful Blu-ray of Kolchak the Night Stalker, and this comes to you from Kino Lorber, and this is the TV series, 20 episodes of the one season of this very influential yet criminally underseen show. It has a, like many cult shows, it has a cult fan base and has a very long trail of influence, right? And influences coming into it and going out. And there are, in each of these 20 episodes, there is a wonderful commentary by a group of, it's like 12 different people doing 20 commentaries, just like kind of down the line of famous people in the archivy world, many of which who Dan and I have worked with before. And there's even like a little booklet and everything. It's a deluxe package, but these are also available to see on NBC.com if you don't want to pay big money for a Blu-ray.
Oh, I did not know the second part.
See, there's something new.
Yeah.
and-
So I'll be going to NBC.com when we hang up.
But of
I
course,
was just there. I just saw the vampire episode.
oh
Oh.
yeah.
So
So Dan, I'm
For-
going to
for the-
say,
go ahead.
this is me introing you, Dan. You are the first one to talk about this series with me obsessively, telling me how much I've needed to see it for about 12 years, and I finally did. And I started with the TV movies, which are not on this. They're separate
which
Blu-ray
you should
releases.
start with. Yeah.
Yeah, I would recommend
Uh,
that.
I'm like half a decade older than Matthew, and I'm like half a century older than Kelsey. It's an interesting thing to put in context. Like, I watched Night Stalker weekly as a kid. It was Night Stalker the movie was our favorite TV movie, and we watched its repeats, and then we were very excited about Night Strangler, and then we were super excited about the show, and then we were super like, what happened? Because this was the era when if a show was canceled, they just stopped.
Yeah, and they
Like,
never told you.
they never told you like there won't be any more Night Stalkers. It's over. It just, you would be Thursday night, 8 p.m. and no Night Stalker.
It wasn't there.
You would get like, a policewoman or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm not slagging Angie Dickinson because she's a lovely woman and a great actress.
But she
But
didn't fight robots.
she didn't fight robots or aliens or homicidal headless horsemen on motorcycles.
Yeah, with a big sword and not
Yeah.
a chain. Like
And they weren't. I mean,
intended.
Darren McGavin was such an unusual hero. I mean, from the TV movie, I mean, the TV series, and I'll let you talk about it because you clearly are fresh. But like, it's important to remember that like the Night Stalker movie was the most successful movie of the week ever.
It was huge.
Millions of people watched it.
It was like 1/3 of all people watching
had
watched
TV
it. Yeah.
Watched it, and the whole thing about Carl Kolchak as a character is he's a reporter with a Minox camera, and yes, my brother bought a Minox camera
Ah!
because of the Night Stalker with the tiny little mini film cassettes.
It was 110 film, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I had one of those. It does not take good pictures.
No.
It is impossible to take a good picture
And
with
that
those cameras.
seersucker suit and the
Oh,
hat.
yeah.
He was so
He was an archetype.
not heroic, not attractive, complete everyman. The one good thing in his life was the fact that his boss, who kept on firing him, would always hire him back because his boss kept on getting fired and having to go to other newspapers. It was a great bromance, and just Kolchak's cowardice. Like, he would pursue the truth, but when like the weird evil stuff started happening, he'd be like, "Whoa!" And it was great.
He was a survivor.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I think like Carl Kolchak and Shaggy are like the two major heroes of the 70s because they both like look into stuff, but they both run away, which is the right response.
Series television in the 70s, in the early 70s, was about to change, right? And Dan and I have, when we worked at Warner Archive, we got to see a lot of different series, go from TV movie to series, mostly genre shows, especially from this time, like Man from Atlantis. And like Star Wars didn't pop up out of the ether fully formed. It's like genre TV was popular and changing, and audiences were getting primed for it, and especially on television it would bring in big numbers, but it was low budget, but they put money and production into it. But usually when it came time to launch a series, the initial, like what made the TV movie work, sometimes just kind of stopped working as the series went on because it didn't fit with the television model. Kolchak, the premise is that it's like the X-Files, which is, came 20 years later, and it's like
and
Supernatural.
Chris Carter's very upfront about like he was inspired by Night Stalker.
Absolutely, especially the science fiction UFO episode. Like I think it was like the 5th or 6th episode, but it tells the story of this reporter who he is like a character from like a 1930s movie, even with his outfit, right? It's like the front page or whatever.
It's like Torchy Blaine fighting vampires.
Torchy Blaine, and then discovers that there is more to the world than we're seeing, and that there really are monsters, right? Not just gangsters, but actual monsters, and nobody really believes it. Or in the case, especially in the TV movies, the police and the authority and the mayor, they realize that these monsters
they don't want to admit
real,
it, right?
That's they do not want to admit it because it was the time of Watergate. right? Like it's like, oh, can't trust the government, right? Which, hey, welcome to the television landscape today, right? These stories keep kind of telling themselves. And that model was like, so influential that the people who saw it when they were younger, and then they, as the 90s rolls around, they're like, oh, I love this show. Let me tinker with the formula. But they, in X-Files, it's like, instead of Kolchak discovering a new monster in Chicago every week in the TV series, it's like, okay, these FBI agents are sent around the country to investigate these things, right? Kind of creating it more realistically. Of course, by the time you get to the 9th episode, in X-Files, I have what you call the X-Files problem, is that like the mythology behind it is like, how can anybody not believe them anymore? Because there should be monsters under every bed, but that same thing with Supernatural. It's like you run 15 seasons, you get into that mythology issue. But anyway, but this is all in this series, and that's what makes this series, if you haven't seen it, worth checking out, worth rediscovering, because it is an essential part of sci-fi TV, mostly DNA. Kelsey, had
Oh.
you ever heard of it before or seen it?
This is one that wasn't even brought up in like film classes. Nothing.
Right.
I hadn't seen anything of it.
But were you aware of Darren McGavin as an actor? Because he was a pretty.
I looked him up just now actually, and the only thing I think I would have seen that he was in is he was in an Adam Sandler movie.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was in. What is it? He's in Happy Madison, or
He's in Happy Madison.
Billy
Yeah.
Madison. Billy Madison.
Billy.
What is it?
Yeah.
Is
Sorry.
it Happy Madison? Is that the name of the production? Happy.
Dan and I are both big experts in
I don't
in
remember.
his au revoir.
Oh yeah, how could you not be? Adam
Yeah.
Sandler is an icon.
Well,
Let's be real, he is an icon. I am a
And
big
he was
Adam
in that movie
Sandler
because
fan.
Adam Sandler was a Night
fan.
Stalker fan.
Yeah. It's Night Stalker is one of those, badges of honor that you get because, again, like a stuff that's hard to find or see and that's influential. It's like people who are familiar with it. You can be like nod, nod, wink, wink. I get that that's a Kolchak reference. But so that's why I'm interested with Kelsey. Like when you saw it, how did it process for you?
Well, one thing that I like immediately stood out to me. So I watched the vampire episode, which I guess is a remake of the first.
Kinda, yeah. I mean, it's very much a follow-up to the first one. Yeah.
They
To the
seem
TV
related.
movie.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing that jumped out to me first was the steak situation that they've got going on. The fact that he's got a whole mallet for it. Like Buffy the Vampire would never. The evolution of the steak really in TV has gone, quite a ways. So that was good.
Now, with Buffy, you just dab them.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're done.
Buffy doesn't need a mallet.
But in the landscape, the fan landscape at the time, Hammer was still. They were making stuff like Dracula AD 1972.
No, wait.
Can we coin the term fanscape as of this podcast?
Fanscape. I think that's a real term.
No, I've never heard it. I'm claiming it.
Okay.
Okay, it's ours now.
Some other academic. Fanscape. There we go.
But
anyway,
but Dan, but you know what I mean. Like
I do.
Like there are elements to it that feel very late 60s, early 70s Hammer horror.
Yeah,
totally. Just like kind of the day for night, like the budget feels that way because they had low budget. And as the series progresses, you notice more and more shots are in daytime because it costs less, right? He's the night. There's a joke that someone made on one of the commentaries.
The day stalker.
The day for night stalker.
Yeah.
Day for night shooting.
How does Kolchak then? Because I'm looking up, and my knowledge of the 70s TV is pretty much limited to Land of the Lost. I know Star Wars came out, around that time. So for me, and I only know the sci-fi fantasy stuff because my dad owns a comic book store, so that's what he showed me.
That's playing in the store 24/7.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I've seen it all. So how does that compare to TV then of the time? Is like in terms of how much of TV at that time was sci-fi fantasy related? Is it a
Wow,
big portion?
that is an awesome question. Genre stuff played well. So, I mean, but it would alternate, right? You'd get like haunted house movie, divorce drama, pregnancy drama, haunted house movie.
Okay.
And what Dan is implicating there is genre did well in the TV movie format because
it's like short stories.
and also because Amanda TV Mayhem
Oh yeah,
Amanda,
yeah.
like it was something that the networks could do. She talks about how they would maybe change the focus, make it a little more female centric, right? A little more domestic. But by getting it into households, right? It was almost like a free movie. And there was no VHS, nothing like that. So people would tune in. But when it came to series, as Dan and I would find, like when you would get something that was kind of revolutionary, like 1973's TV series Search, which we talked about a lot on previous podcasts, it would tend to get overlooked by audiences. It just would kind of fly over the head, but it took a while for Star Trek and syndication to get genre moving, right? Dan, I mean, like it was like
Yeah, but
space.
Star Trek and Lost in Space's syndication success was pretty fast.
Okay.
I mean, they're kind of the outliers.
But coming into prime time, it wasn't really until, and again, it started with TV movies, but like
and every time they tried to do a genre TV series, except for $6 Million Man and Bionic Woman, they were always flops. Always.
It really took like until The Incredible Hulk. It took till later.
Well, Incredible Hulk only worked because Kenny, our friend Kenny, correctly at the time said, okay, no comic, fugitive.
Right. You had to find a format, a TV format that you could attach it to, right? That's why The Incredible Hulk works. And that's why, I was listening to a lot of the commentaries, why Kolchak, when you watch 20 episodes, it's hard to repeat the TV movie over and over again.
Right.
You need a more modern, what's now a more modern
format.
I
mean, what Kolchak needed, which is what X-Files had, was a wider supporting story.
Right.
Because there was the best episodes of X-Files are the Monster of the Week episodes, then their Night Stalker episodes. But as a backdrop, X-Files had the conspiracy and Skinner and the other and
that was
the
beginning of like building a world in series television, what we would now call a metaverse or whatever.
Right.
And
but
that's
the characters in X-Files had a home life.
Right.
Carl Kolchak and Simon Oakland had no home life. They were just putting out the newspaper.
Because in the 70s, they didn't necessarily show TV shows in order. Everything had to reset back.
Which is why, like the Night Stalker, like the first TV movie, he's right and he gets fired.
Yeah,
Second
he gets fired.
TV movie, he's in a different city because he got fired. Opening episode of the Night Stalker TV series, third city because he got fired, but then he has to stay in that city.
Because they went for one day to shoot him driving around downtown Chicago, which they showed
over and over again.
But as Dan
Great
and
car though.
Awesome car. But as Dan and I would recognize, like he even comes to the Warner Brothers lot, mostly the Universal lot, or like Midtown and downtown. It's fun to see the LA locations that stand in for Chicago. The big dry hills right outside Chicago. And we're going to be talking about those Brown Mountains in the next segment, the Brown Mountains of England. But just like kind of to wrap this up, the Blu-ray Well, let's talk about guest stars. Dan, do you remember some of the guest stars from Night Stalker? I have
Oh,
a
I
list.
I don't. I'm going on to NBC.com because I love the show, but I've not seen the Blu-ray. I've not seen any DVDs. So
So
go.
I'll tell you, it was Scatman Crothers, Tom
My
Skerritt, Dick Van Patten, who has his shirt unbuttoned and has a medallion, Jamie Farr, who plays a high school science teacher.
I remember that one.
Funny. Phil Silvers, Jim Backus, Julie Adams, Kathy Lee Crosby, Carolyn Jones, Tom Bosley, and many more. And I have the list of people who of the audio commentary.
No, before you get into that, I think what is very interesting is the creative people that worked and wrote on the show.
Jesus, yes, and I don't bring up Jesus' name very often because, first of all, there is a wonderful interview with
David Chase.
Yes, with the creator of The Sopranos, and it's wonderful to watch his face because at the beginning of
he was the script editor. What was his job on Night Stalker?
He had just graduated.
He was a kid, right?
He was about to become a teacher, and he talks about running into a guy who's a friend at a party, and he's like, "Well, let me bring you on to the show," and he's like, "Okay," and he finds himself on a network show, and his episodes start getting on the air, and like at the beginning, he kind of talks about how he was, and TV writers were like this at the time. He wanted to write movies, but he's working on this very low-rated show, which he wasn't even paying attention to. He had no idea the show was canceled. He wrote the 20th episode and found out after he wrote it that it had gotten canceled. Like he just had no clue. But he said what for him that works with the stories is like he was at the time a younger guy, and his sense of humor was a little more 60s gonzo humor,
right.
And then mixing that with like this kind of front page like almost like 40s like
front page. That's good. Yeah.
Created this tone because there were all these like executive battles in the background over tone and direction, but all those forces fighting each other created something very unique. And in the course of this 9-minute interview, you see him really actually fondly remember and warm up to the show, and how even later, until maybe he created like The Sopranos or something, like that was the show that people would come back to him with and be like, "You were involved in that show? That show was freaking crazy." This is where there are some similarities between The Sopranos and Kolchak, right?
Yep.
Kolchak is dominated by character actors. The people we mentioned.
No, I mean, it's like,
and
James Gandolfini, R.I.P. Speaking of R.I.P., Howard Hessman. Did you hear?
Yeah.
So, goodbye, Johnny Fever. We love you.
I thought you were going to say head of the class.
I would have, but I'm trying to be broad.
Okay.
But yeah, Gandolfini, him becoming a star never would have happened until HBO and David Chase.
So the commentaries are fantastic, and they include, let's see, I've got a list here. I'll just name a few. My favorite British critic, Kim Newman.
Kim Newman is so much more than a critic, Matthew.
I know. He is the author of my favorite biography, Life's Lottery, the best choose your own adventure autobiography of all time.
Next to Philip Jose Farmer, there is no better genre writer in terms of I don't know what you call the field, the shared universe theory of all pop culture.
He's mostly in novels known for his Anno Dracula series, which
is a shared.
Right.
Yes.
And I was just name checking Anno Dracula.
Oh no, and I'm sure he appreciates it.
And
because that's like 2 more book sales for
him. But like Kolchak, you can see where this
totally.
like DNA of the vampire and the modern vampire story kind of comes through. Tim Lucas, film historian,
Video watchdog Tim
Video
Lucas.
Watchdog, who we advertised with.
We heart Tim Lucas.
Yeah, so great. And there's Steve Haberman, and I mentioned Amanda Reyes, and let's see who else. Oh, Michael Schlesinger, and the guy who wrote the Kolchak tapes, the guy who does the Kolchak tapes podcast. There's a whole Kolchak podcast that's Chris,
and if you look around, there's even like, I think currently, I don't know when this is actually going to get put up, but there's currently a Kickstarter for a anniversary Kolchak graphic novel.
Oh yeah, and there's Gary Girani, who I have talked to, and Konstantin Nasir, who we have worked with. Konstantin. So it's star-studded and worth the price if you're a physical media collector. It is currently on sale. We have links.
Wait, it's
at
on
our
sale?
website.
We have links?
It is,
Wait,
yeah. And it's totally worth it. Or you can see it on NBC.com right now. I mean, you know, as Dan and I are well aware, these things move. So if it's not on NBC soon, it'll be maybe somewhere else.
It'll be on Tubi.
Yeah.
Okay, so Klaatu Barada Nichu.
Yes, that. The words he never seems to get correct. Bruce Campbell. Let's talk about him.
Yay. Kelsey picked a movie to talk about, and
Yes.
Dan and I were very, very excited by your choice.
Yeah, so I'll go in. I'll just give a little background. The reason I chose this is one I was watching when I grew up. It came out in '92, and my dad was still obsessed with it sometime in 2002 when I got the chance to first watch it. I think my favorite part is definitely all the little mini ashes and the mayhem
Child
that
friendly.
they cause, because I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous. The whole movie is just hilarity, and ridiculousness, and Bruce Campbell being more agitated than I remember him being. So it quite sprightly. He had a lot of kickback in him that he didn't have in Burn Notice. So
yeah, no, he was actually super subdued in Burn Notice, right? I mean,
Yeah.
he was great, and I was glad that he had that 5-year regular paycheck, but like the character he was playing was so subdued for Bruce Campbell.
Was not what I expected.
Well, he's an actor.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I mean, the things that stood out for me rewatching, and I rewatched it last night just to give myself a little refresher. The facial expressions that Bruce Campbell is capable of. It was just a constant facial expression change, almost Jim Carrey-esque, but I'd say better.
Better, yeah, I'm with you. Yeah,
2 years before The Mask, right? 2 or 3 years.
Right. I mean, it was all like it was an era where like movies like Phantasm and Evil Dead would actually get mainstream distribution, which would not happen today.
And that was the post sort of Star Wars era, where low budget producers who had been making, you know, When Animal Attacks movies and even like sci-fi and stuff, which way could low budget producers go with a budget where the majors wouldn't? And that was like horror, like very bloody horror, slashers, and horror comedy, because it was niche, right?
But and Sam Raimi, in between making the horror films, he was the first AD on the Coen Brothers movies, because he and the Coen Brothers and Bruce Campbell all went to school together. But wait, quick, I have a Sam Raimi story. 20 years ago, my dad visited me in LA.
Yes.
And because I delight in torturing my greatest generation parent,
yes,
I took him to see Spider-Man.
Yes.
The Sam Raimi, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man,
yes,
which is very timely now because, oh my God, it's so popular. It's the second most popular Marvel movie of all time. Shocking. And then after Spider-Man, we went to a famous deli in the Wilshire district. And as I was,
pastrami.
yes, and as I was paying my check, the gentleman next to me turned and said, "Hey, don't forget to get them to validate." And I was like, "Oh, thanks." And I looked at him. I was like, "Oh my God, it's Sam Raimi." And then I looked over, and Ted Raimi was sitting at the table, like across from my dad and I. And I was like, "Oh my God, the Raimis were like totally hanging out." Because this was like the opening weekend for the movie. And like, I was just like, and then of course, I very excitedly told my dad, like, "That's the guy who directed the movie." And my dad couldn't care less. But thanks
And
to
then-
Sam, I saved $5.
And then Stan Lee, who was working
No,
behind the counter,
no,
goes, "Hey,
no,
kid, here's a sandwich
no.
for you."
No,
No? You didn't get a
No.
cameo?
no, though that would be funny. Yeah.
Well, so now that brings us back to Arthurian times, because we haven't even
We haven't
We
even discussed
discussed the movie. Yeah.
Okay, so let me give you
What happens?
synopsis. This is from my older brother who's a very big fan, and he gave me a little synopsis, and I
I
like
like
it.
this.
So he goes, he's sent back in time. It's decided he is the chosen one with his mighty boomstick. He fucks up his quest to retrieve I'm gonna say this wrong, Necronomicon. Is that correct? Necronomicon? That's what-
Necronomicon Ex Mortis.
Slightly
because
different.
he refuses to write down the Latin phrase that would protect him. Bad stuff happens. Anti-Ash is born, and they must defeat the army of darkness. That's the movie. And
Pretty
we
much.
can't- Yeah, we can't forget his boomstick, which is one of the most
And
coined.
It's the boomstick, and it's shop smart, shop smart.
Yes, those are quotable phrases.
And this movie, this third one, came about because Darkman was so successful. The movie everybody remembers at Universal.
I remember Dark.
I know. Kelsey, have you ever heard of Darkman?
No, so I was reading when I was
see?
doing reading on this. They kept mentioning that Darkman had just come out.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
So-
that
so,
it was successful.
Kelsey, I will tell you, and this is true, the first Marvel movie ever made was Darkman, which is not a Marvel movie and was directed by Sam Raimi. But the same elements you see in the Marvel movies are all in Darkman.
Interesting, and Liam Neeson.
Yeah.
Darkman
Liam Neeson. Okay.
has been forgotten. Like for as successful as it was at the time.
Not
You know,
by me.
No, not by you. I remember seeing it.
Although, in all fairness to the detractors, don't watch this. They made for video sequels. Just watch Darkman. Don't watch Darkman 2 or 3.
So because Sam Raimi, who was working kind of outside the system and then also inside the system, right? Because he had been working with the Coen brothers and was a very good filmmaker, and he made this movie for Universal, which made them money. They were like, okay, they're gonna back and make the next Evil Dead movie.
But they couldn't be an Evil Dead movie because they didn't have the Evil Dead rights, which is why it's Army of Darkness, which is why there's this.
Why isn't it
bifurcation.
called?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
also, the rights to the movie had fallen to Dino De Laurentiis. Dino was well known for pre-selling foreign rights to raise money for the film's production. He would pre-sell.
Yeah, Dino set the template, but the Golden Globus ran.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Canon Films
Yeah.
took that ball and ran it into the ground.
and threw it into the end zone.
But Dino had the rights, and so was happy to split the cost of this film, which was budgeted at about $12 million, which was a lot more money than the other films.
Yeah, what I had read is that it started at 8, and then that was sorely lacking. It got up to 12, and then they needed 3 million more for post. I couldn't.
Well, yes. So Universal, as a studio, like many studios, throw some monkey wrenches in. Another monkey wrench was the film was supposed to come out in '92. It wound up coming out in '93 because Dino De Laurentiis wouldn't give the rights to Hannibal Lecter, which he had from the film Maneater, a Dino movie.
Manhunter.
Manhunter, sorry. Thank you, Dan. That's why you're here. I'm doing this from the top of my head. Because they were going
Good
to
movie,
do
by the way, people.
a sequel
Manhunter.
of Silence of the Lambs, which they didn't wind up making for another 9 years.
Silence of the Lambs is the sequel to Manhunter.
Right, sequel to Manhunter, but they were going, Universal wanted to make a third film, a second Universal film.
Yes.
But Dino De Laurentiis still owned
Had the rights
character
to Hannibal. Yes.
Yeah. So all of these businessy things in the background come in and affect the creative decisions that wind up, in this Army of Darkness. Another thing that stood out for me, and one of the reasons why I was excited when Army of Darkness was coming out, like I wasn't old enough to see Evil Dead or Evil Dead 2 when it came into the theater, but I had heard about it. I had, I think I saw Evil Dead 2 on VHS at that point, but because Army of Darkness was so ambitious with like miniatures photography, like this is all
there's like a whole Ray Harryhausen
computer special effects, and they used like InnoVision. They used these newer model techniques, which now again, when you watch a newer transfer, like a Blu-ray or a 2K, it really shows how a lot of these effects hold up well because they're not computer, right? A lot of cheap early 90s computer effects look horrible now. And these look horrible, but in the almost Harryhausen cool way. Like it's kind of cool to see the little models and the makeup effects. And
right, well, there's a lot of practical in it.
Yeah.
Because it was at that beginning era, and in the practical effects, as they always do, hold up.
They hold up really well. The thing that bugged me at the time, which I kind of am way more forgiving now, maybe due to like a Quentin Tarantino influence, but well, first of all, like King Arthur is somehow in 1300 and England is the California desert. Like, I was like, why wasn't it Spain? It looked like a Spanish castle, but they built this giant set up like Lancaster, or it was like right on the edge of the desert. I mean, it looks California to me.
Wasn't it by like Elsinore? Am I wrong?
It could have been up there. I mean, it was up, it was north of here, but
wait,
but not that far.
I definitely was able to find this online. I'll find it really quick. I can tell you exactly where it is.
Yeah, I couldn't quite remember, but I mean, it looks like California, which
totally,
could be like at the time, it almost made it feel like it was a Dino De Laurentiis shot in Spain movie,
right.
Like it felt like an Italian spaghetti Western, which they would shoot at old castles. But instead of going to Spain and shooting in a real old castle, they built a castle in the California desert in a very depopulated England. But that doesn't matter. That's because it is a cartoon. It's not, there's no heroes. I mean, quest, it's just basically fetch, and he failed, and there are consequences, and then has to invent gunpowder.
Yeah. It says Acton, California.
Acton.
Wherever that is.
Okay.
Acton, California, near the edge of the Mojave Desert. That's where they
Yeah.
That's where they built this castle. Production was all sorts of crazy because they had like 6 hours of night, and
if they shot it in the summer.
Yeah.
Because it would have been
right.
would have been hard to shoot, because it's like you can't shoot. I mean, like what, or day for night, right? Like, I mean, what options?
There's a lot of day for night in Army of Darkness. Yeah.
Yeah. So
and all that affects the the production and the budget. And then, of course, once they, finish and they make a director's cut, that's when the studio steps in
and says, change the good ending for the other ending, which is still a good ending, contrary to fan belief.
Okay.
The S-Mart ending is fine. The I screwed up and I wake up and I'm old
in the wrong time.
Better. Yeah.
Yes. So I watched. I found the other ending.
Oh, you found the alternate ending.
I was reading about it, right? And they were like, all of these different versions, and they didn't like Sam Raimi's ending. And yeah, honestly, I woke up and there, what is it? The Big
It's the
Bang
apocalypse.
Yeah,
is just
Yeah.
yeah,
like destroyed right there. Yeah.
yeah.
It's pretty good. Honestly, I do like that ending. I think better the Smart ending did kind of come out of nowhere. It
Yeah.
did seem out
But
of nowhere.
without the S-Mart ending, we don't get Ash versus Evil Dead,
Yes.
which is a great 3-season TV series that features, and now we're looping all the way back,
Whoa.
Lee Majors as Ash's dad.
And
Right. $6 million man. So there
Should I have
are
said the great Lee Majors?
well, I guess.
I don't know many actors that, right? Lee was on the Big Valley hit
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
60s big show.
Yeah. 70s,
$70s,
$6
$6
million
million
man.
man, big
80s,
show. $80s, Fall Guy.
Fall Guy.
Took a break in the $90s.
Oh,
Came back in the aughts with Ash versus Evil Dead, or is that more of the tens?
That's
I guess
the
that was more the
10s.
tens. Yeah.
I think
Anyway.
in the aughts he did his commercials for the hearing aids.
Right. Anyway, we love you, Lee Majors. Come be on our podcast.
So are like 4 versions of this film, and it is hard to find a collection of them to kind of put this together, right? And again, this is part of the archiving process. Like what versions are saved? Where are they? What condition are the elements in? And these are the kinds of things that Dan and I, when we worked with the WB Library, would have to deal with when we were putting together collections, especially television, but also films. Like what version is the version? What do fans want to see? And what can you rescue? And what condition is it in? And what do you have the rights to? Because some things, if it's an international version, you may not have the rights to certain cuts. It's like,
Well, and beyond that, there's the which a lot of people don't understand, is the Abend decision of the Supreme Court is why excuse me excuse me again, which is why a lot of films like Letty Linton are not available through viewing, because the underlying story that they were based on, it used to be, no harm, no foul. If you did your due diligence, you were okay. But then the Supreme Court in Abend basically said, no, unless you have clear authorization to do it, you can't do it, you can't release it, you can't show it. And so there's all this material that was already made because the writer sold the rights, but now the writer's dead, and their family, the estate, has the rights, but no one knows who the estate is. No one can get anyone to sign off, or when they try to get them to sign off, they don't get a response. And those films or TV shows or songs just end up in this limbo that will never end because of this decision, until they fall into the public domain, which, thanks to the Copyright Extension Act, will not be happening for 40 or 50 years for these things, because we're into like 1925 with public domain.
Yeah, so write down your wish list, Kelsey.
Yeah.
Because in 25 years you can get to stuff from 1950.
Listen,
But
I
speaking
don't
of
know what I
UCAS,
want, but I'll pick something out. I don't know
Excellent.
what's good from it.
so my lost film that you can't
Yes.
find
Yes.
is 1974's Open Season. It might have been
Ooh.
1973. Open Season with Peter Fonda, John Philip Law, and Richard Lynch, who you won't know the name, but as soon as you see a picture, you'll be like, oh, that guy. He's the character actor that always played bad guys.
This is not to be confused with the animated Open Season.
No.
And they're completely different, not
completely
related?
different. Yeah, Open Season is a genre exploitation film in which 3 Vietnam vets who are post-traumatic sadists spend their summers hunting people.
Ah,
Uh, and it was the first time Peter Fonda ever played like a total bad guy.
so is it like Most Dangerous Game, but more
Yeah, very,
dangerous?
very. I mean, the twist in Open Season is these three guys who always pick like a man and a woman to hunt. Uh, this season, while they're hunting two people, are themselves being hunted.
Ooh.
You can find a really crappy VHS with a really creepy transfer because I don't think it was ever legit. It was like an Impala production. I think Columbia distributed it, and aside from its subject matter being controversial and difficult, I don't know why you can't see this one, but it's worth hunting for because it's a great genre film. But good luck. And if you do find it, it's going to be a really crappy version. But you can easily find the trailer because that was in a compilation of 70s action trailers that came out. So if you go to YouTube and look for Open Season Peter Fonda, you can watch the trailer.
An interesting thing to point
Matt,
out.
maybe you should
Yes.
put a link to the trailer.
I will put a link to the
All
trailer.
right, there we go.
Something interesting that Dan and I have encountered are finding people who work with labels like Arrow, who will do the difficult work of tracking down the rights to these films and untangling the legal part and also the elements, right? Trying to find the best elements
and you will often
and
find
transfers.
that the best people to do this are people like Arrow and Shout, because they have the time. When it's an industry owned thing, the legal departments for WB or Universal will usually just be like, it's not worth our time, we're not going to do it. Whereas the sub labels, when that's all they do, they have the time and the people to unwind and find out this stuff.
Well, their libraries are basically picking up smaller libraries or questionable rights.
Right. I mean, lower high hanging fruit means nothing to a corporate legal department. It's just like, I don't have time for this.
But a film like the one you described, what a great pitch. Like if they're able to untangle this, now they can present this almost as a new movie, right?
It's
discovery.
I mean, it's perfect for Powerhouse, Indicator, or Arrow. Totally.
So that would be a great one to see. Thank you, Dan. And are you a distributor of hard to see movies, watching or listening to this podcast? Maybe you should send us
an affiliate link.
An affiliate
link. No, not an affiliate link. Actually send us things to watch.
Yeah.
That's even better.
Yeah, because we are happy to talk about these releases. I mean, we just picked them sort of based off of our own weird willy-nilly methods, which is wonderful. But let us help you get the word out, because
and if you actually send us one of your films on a subsequent podcast, I will play it on this TV that is in shot, and it will be running in the background. So free commercial.
And you can write us at archiveguys.com. But you can come to our website, archiveguys.com, and there are lots of links everywhere. It's very easy to contact us. You can do it through social media. We our hordes of fans. Let's see. We have 3 people who've watched our YouTube video so far.
All right.
One of them is me.
No.
I don't know, because we haven't told anybody it's there yet. Right. So it's all hush hush, but not really.
So speaking of hush hush, we do have guests lined up that aren't here now, but will be here in the future. Yes. I can't tell you who they are, but you should be excited.
And if you want to be a guest and we like you, or if we don't like you,
or even if we don't like you,
or don't know you, drop us a message on your favorite messaging format, and Dan will be sure to get back to you.
I will.
Because Dan's in charge of booking now.
Yeah.
We divided it up. I'm doing
I-
Twitter. We said this
Yep.
before, right,
Yep,
Dan? What are you
yep.
doing?
I'm doing the Facebook and the YouTube. I also am looking for work and a date. So I'm open for all of that.
All the bookings go to Dan.
All the booking.
Kelsey's in charge of.
The Instagram. I just want to put out a little notice that I will not be like Matt in the past and put a downer on all of your fan art. So please submit it. I will post it.
Down. Yeah, it goes up. It wasn't me.
It wasn't Matt. It was not Matt.
Oh,
It
okay,
was not
okay.
Matt.
Please send me your fan art. I'll put it up.
And we will also be taking questions from the audience.
Ooh, which
Christmas special.
leads me to my question. That'll be my question.
Yes. What is your question that is substituting for a reader question?
Yeah. So I am someone who hates sequels, remakes. Can you give me your pick for the number one remake that is actually better than the original? It's either remake better than the original, sequel better than the original, something that's come back around that is better than its
Well,
predecessor.
I can do the lazy answer for sequel, not remake.
Empire.
No, Evil Dead 2.
Evil Dead 2. Well, that's a good one.
Okay.
That's my
mean-
lazy answer. But Evil Dead 2 is better than Evil Dead 1. Not that Evil Dead 1 is bad. It's just
Right.
that Evil Dead 2 is extraordinarily good. Mhm.
Well, some filmmakers, when they get the ability to go back, like with Evil Dead is a good example. They were
Oh, wait. Godfather.
Oh, Godfather 2, right. That is
Godfather 2
another-
is way better than Godfather 1. And Godfather 1 is a classic, but
Yeah.
Godfather 2 is amazing.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, but Godfather 3 puts them all to shame. I mean, because it really does have a
I
fuller
have not-
cannoli.
I have not watched the new version of Godfather 3. Have you?
No.
All right.
I've only seen the cannoli cut.
Yeah.
Huh?
It's a terrible Godfather 3 joke.
Oh no.
You don't have to watch
Nobody
it
did
to
it.
get that. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, don't. I
I-
enjoy cannolis.
But I do want to just do my one Godfather 3 joke. Are
Okay,
you
please,
ready?
Go.
Papa?
That's very good. Sophia Coppola. That was his impression.
I know.
We're
I
so
thought-
glad she ended up directing.
I
I feel
thought
like that's
she-
Dan's audition to get
Yeah.
cast.
I thought that the line, because again, I've only seen it once and it was when it came out. I thought it was Daddy.
It might be Daddy.
Daddy?
Daddy.
That I remember. But
Yeah,
Papa is also
yeah.
good. I think that because your child calls you Papa, so that's
Exactly.
probably
Yeah.
how you transpose that. But the spirit.
Well, I was
is
just
there.
assuming that Sophia would call her dad Papa because she's also Italian, but you're probably right.
I had you told your Sam Raimi story. My Sophia Coppola story was that my dog
Which dog?
Groon.
Good dog.
I was at Millie's in Silver Lake on Sunset, outdoor dining. My dog loved outdoor dining. She also could not stop putting her face in the crotch of the woman next to me, who turned out to be Sophia Coppola. And I had to keep pulling my dog out of there. And then that was a little embarrassing.
And that's how you got your first studio job.
That is how I got blacklisted from Hollywood. I blame my dog.
Yeah.
Groon went on, though, to star in the animated TV special, which is on YouTube and seen by 300 people, which you can see on my YouTube channel. Thank you. The end. This is the end of the episode. We're
think
going
it
to
is.
be recording again soon as this gets edited. We're on a roll now. Thank you for listening to this episode. I'm Matt Patterson.
I'm Kelsey Milbury.
I'm so late for having lunch.
And we'll see and or talk to you next time.
Woo!